The town of Bradford, nestled deep in the forests of northern America, was no stranger to the occasional missing hiker or camper. But when 19-year-old Lisa Caldwell vanished without a trace during a routine bike ride along the woodland trails, the town descended into a fevered panic. Lisa had always been an adventurous soul, the type who found solace in the whispering trees and winding paths of the forest. She had ridden those trails countless times before, her bright red bike a familiar blur among the evergreens. But this time, she never returned. Days stretched into weeks with no sign of her. No bike, no clothing, not even a footprint. The local authorities conducted extensive searches, scouring every inch of the forest with helicopters, scent dogs, and volunteers. Yet, it was as if the woods had simply swallowed her whole. Detective John Tanner arrived from the city, a hardened investigator with years of experience in missing person cases. He had seen it all: runaways, abductions, murders masked as disappearances. But this case felt different. There were no leads, no suspects, just an overwhelming sense of something being wrong. Locals spoke in hushed tones about the forest's past, about strange sounds at night, about missing cattle, about shadows too large to be human. "Something's out there," one old man muttered at the town diner, his rheumy eyes darting to the trees beyond the window. "Something that don't want to be found." Tanner dismissed the folklore, but couldn't ignore the fear that gripped the town. Determined to uncover the truth, he set out alone into the woods, armed with nothing but his pistol, a flashlight, and a growing sense of unease. The deeper he ventured, the quieter the forest became. No birdsong, no rustling leaves, just an oppressive silence. The air grew thick, suffocating, as if the trees themselves were holding their breath. Tanner found Lisa's bike, twisted and broken, half buried under a pile of leaves. The metal frame was bent as if something with immense strength had crushed it. The tires were torn, shredded by what looked like claws. Nearby, massive footprints, too large for any human, pressed deep into the damp earth. Tanner's breath hitched. He wasn't alone. A sudden snap of a branch made him whirl around, gun raised. The trees stretched tall and gnarled, their shadows clawing at the forest floor. Then he saw it. A figure loomed in the darkness, partially obscured by the trees. It was enormous, at least 8 feet tall, covered in matted dark fur. Its eyes, reflecting the faint moonlight, glowed an unnatural amber. The creature watched him, its heavy breath visible in the cold air. The acrid stench of damp fur and decay filled Tanner's nostrils. Tanner's pulse pounded in his ears. His training screamed at him to run, to fire his weapon, to do anything but stand frozen in terror. But something about the creature's stare held him in place. It wasn't just an animal. There was intelligence behind those eyes. A knowing, almost calculating presence. And then it moved. With a sudden, unnatural speed, the beast stepped forward, its enormous footfalls making the ground tremble. It raised one massive arm, and in its hand, hanging limply like a rag doll, was Lisa's torn and tattered jacket. Blood stained the fabric, deep crimson against the pale blue material. Tanner barely had time to react before the creature let out a deep, guttural growl that shook him to his core. He took a step back, gun shaking in his grip, but he knew the truth in that moment. Lisa Caldwell was never coming home, and neither was he. The wind howled through the trees, and the last thing Detective John Tanner saw was a massive hand reaching toward him, pulling him into the darkness. His screams were swallowed by the night, devoured by the endless, ancient forest. Days later, a search party was sent after Tanner. They found his gun, emptied of bullets, lying in the dirt near Lisa's bike. No sign of him, no tracks leading away. Just silence. The people of Bradford knew better than to ask questions. They locked their doors at night, ignored the howls echoing through the trees, and whispered the same warning to their children. Never go into the woods alone.